At the center of Buckingham Palace lies a sealed document, Her Majesty's private will. Now whispers say it includes a shocking decree. Meghan's children are stripped from royal succession. What if that clandestine clause is real? From the outside, the monarchy appears carefully choreographed, steeped in ancient tradition, and governed by centuries-old laws. But within its walls, behind gold-lined doors and hushed corridors, power moves differently. It is whispered, suggested, and sealed not in public decrees, but in personal wishes. And when the Queen passed, leaving behind decades of leadership, wisdom, and secrets, what she truly believed about family and duty may have been hidden in that very document. For years, tensions have brewed between the firm and the Sussexes. From public interviews to royal snubs, a rift widened in full view of the world. But beneath that media storm lay a deeper question. Would the Queen allow her great-grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet, children of a couple who walked away to inherit royal privilege? Or did she, in her final act, draw a private line that history would never forget? The idea is incendiary. A single clause, one that's never been publicly confirmed, could disrupt the very foundations of royal hierarchy. It would bypass parliamentary protocol, leap over modern reforms, and declare from beyond the grave that bloodline alone isn't enough, that loyalty, service, and proximity matter more than title or lineage. If this private decision exists, it may forever change the story of succession. Family feud becomes public spectacle. Public trust collides with royal discretion, and the monarchy, once thought unshakable, begins to tremble beneath the weight of its secrets. Is it possible that the Queen, celebrated for her neutrality, delivered her final verdict in silence? This isn't just about a family. It's about the institution, the rules, and the consequences of rewriting legacy in private. This journey is not for the faint of heart. It's a dive into legal labyrinths, power plays, unspoken rules, and generational fallout. Every rumor, every whisper, every document, no matter how elusive, adds another piece to this explosive puzzle. We'll follow the paper trail, expose the emotional undercurrents, and explore the impact of a choice that may have never been meant for the public eye. Was this exclusion a final message, a calculated move, or something far more personal than we can imagine? Let's begin by understanding the legal backbone. Could such a clause even exist? Unlike other wills, the Queen's private will may carry unseen weight. So what exactly can it influence? When an ordinary person passes away, their will goes through probate, processed, published, archived, but not for the monarch. Queen Elizabeth II's will, like those before hers, was sealed by court order. Its contents are hidden, its instructions are concealed, and that secrecy is not just tradition, it's power. A private will, especially one left by the longest-reigning monarch in British history, doesn't merely distribute heirlooms or estates. It becomes a whisper of final judgment, a deeply personal reckoning cloaked in royal mystery. In the royal world, the term private will means something far more intricate than what the public understands. Unlike constitutional laws or ceremonial declarations, it holds no legislative authority. It isn't subject to parliamentary oversight. But within palace walls, such a document may carry a weight that transcends legality. It's the last word, and in some cases, it's a coded message, one that could influence how power is interpreted by those left behind. For over a century, the monarchy's legal structure has been dictated through formal channels, namely, letters patent. These royal decrees determine everything from succession to titles, offering concrete definitions of who counts as royal and who does not. They are public, traceable, and anchored in law. The 117 letters patent set the standard, while the 2012 update modernized it. And yet, even these declarations carry one caveat: They depend on the reigning monarch's will, and that is where the private document gains its chilling potential. While it cannot cancel or override the legal succession, it can suggest what the next monarch should do. It can advise, it can direct, and it can signal deep disapproval. A private clause, even if symbolic, becomes a roadmap, a silent hand guiding the decisions of the crown's new custodian. And for those left outside its favor, it can mean social exile cloaked in ceremonial calm. Within royal estates, this kind of symbolic messaging has precedence. Queen Victoria left private letters detailing who she trusted. King George V made subtle, posthumous maneuvers regarding public roles. These moves weren't legally binding, but they were emotionally and politically potent. They shaped how titles were distributed, how certain royals were viewed, and how succession was handled behind closed doors. This brings us to a delicate, dangerous tension, the contrast between the monarch's public duties and their private beliefs. In public, Queen Elizabeth was famously neutral. She welcomed Meghan with smiles, gifted Archie a christening robe, and spoke of family unity. But what if her sealed will told a different story? What if, in her final breath, she chose clarity over ambiguity and declared, in writing, that Meghan's children were to remain outside the royal fold? That conflict between ceremonial diplomacy and hidden finality is where the real story unfolds. Because when the public word and private wish do not align, it is not law that determines the next move. It is interpretation. And that interpretation now lies in the hands of King Charles and, inevitably, Prince William. Granted, a private will can't rewrite law, but buried clauses can send shockwaves. So, what clues have leaked out? Tabloids and whispers point to secret memos. Could we piece together the shadow trail? It all started with a delay, silent, unexplained, and oddly timed. When Meghan and Harry reportedly struggled to secure UK passports and royal documentation for Archie and Lilibet, questions surfaced. The official story was vague, administrative lag, standard process. But within days, tabloids began speculating that something more intentional was at play. Could the palace be using bureaucratic slow-walking as a quiet weapon, a subtle way to enforce a decision that had already been made, perhaps by the Queen herself before her passing? Then came the YouTube videos, loud, viral, and sensational. Titles screamed across screens. Meghan panics as William Denny's Archie's place in line. Numbers were hooked, and the numbers didn't lie. Millions watched as independent creators dissected the situation, frame by frame. Some claimed that William, now next in line to the throne, had invoked an emergency royal protocol to halt the children's elevation. Others insisted the Queen's private will was still under lock and key and had barred Meghan's children from ever holding a royal title or role. No one could confirm it, yet no one could rule it out. But just as things began to cool, another thread re-emerged. Radar gossip columns hinted at something even darker. Reports began to surface, unverified but explosive. Palace aides had once floated the idea of requesting DNA confirmation for Archie. The implication? Those doubts about paternity lingered in the hushed corners of Buckingham Palace. It was the kind of accusation that couldn't be proven and wouldn't be denied. But its existence alone sent shockwaves through public discourse. Whether truth or invention, it fed the growing storm. The rumor mill didn't stop there. Social media fanned the flames with every passing hour. Threads on X, formerly Twitter, and Reddit forums dissected every facial expression, every slight delay in titles, every difference in royal website listings. TikTok videos layered dramatic music over news clips, while captions posed the question, is the palace hiding something? This was no longer a scandal. It was a movement propelled by the need for answers and fueled by royal silence. Anonymous insiders only deepened the intrigue. Former staffers, some named, others concealed, hinted at internal unease. One source claimed the Queen had grown quietly concerned about Harry's reckless independence. Another suggested that conversations about succession and legitimacy had indeed occurred, but were handled privately to protect the institution. Each comment, however carefully worded, only raised more questions. If there was nothing to hide, why was everyone so afraid to speak plainly? Despite all this, there is still no leak, no page from the will, no recording, no official quote. And yet the weight of inference is crushing. The lack of evidence isn't enough to dismiss the claims. It's part of what gives them power. The absence becomes a mystery, and in the monarchy, mysteries are often more influential than facts. These leaks, though unconfirmed, paint an intriguing tapestry. Now, let's follow the family lines. A clause in a private will, could it overshadow centuries of constitutional law? Here's what governs the throne. The British monarchy is not held together by sentiment. It's sustained by law, lineage, and legacy. Behind the pomp and pageantry lies a rigid legal framework that has evolved through generations of power struggles, political reforms, and royal decisions sealed with authority. At the center of that framework is the Succession to the Crown Act, 2013, a modern cornerstone designed to ensure equality and clarity in an age where tradition must meet progress. It confirmed that gender no longer dictates who inherits the crown, but it also reaffirmed something far older. Only Parliament, not private documents or personal emotions, can determine who sits on the throne. But even in the shadow of that act, power pulses through older arteries, namely the letters patent, issued first in 1917 by King George V, and later modified in 2012 under Queen Elizabeth II. These royal decrees establish who receives the style and dignity of His or Her Royal Highness and who is entitled to be called Prince or Princess. The Queen's update was meant to reflect a leaner, more modern royal family. But it also left something unsaid, whether future monarchs could restrict those same titles even further. And that's where the intrigue begins. Because while Parliament controls the line of succession, the monarch still holds immense power through royal prerogative, particularly when it comes to style, title, and status. Through a royal decree, the monarch can grant, withhold, or revoke HRH titles. We've seen it before. In Princess Diana divorce. Prince Charles, she lost her HRH. When Sarah Ferguson parted ways with Prince Andrew, she was stripped of the same honor, the justification. They were no longer working royals, and that precedent may well be the smoking gun behind this story. Now imagine this power wielded not in the public arena, but in private. A sealed will, written by the Queen in her final months, may not possess the authority to rewrite law. But what if it strongly urged her heir Charles, or even William, to act accordingly? What if it contained wording that suggested the Sussex children should not bear titles their parents had walked away from? The will wouldn't need to make a legal decree, it would only need to offer royal instruction. A monarch's final wish carries weight, even in silence. What makes this even more potent is that Charles and William are uniquely positioned to act on such a request. Charles, already committed to slimming down the monarchy, could easily argue that Archie and Lilibet's titles contradict that goal. William, who has grown increasingly resolute in preserving the integrity of the royal institution, might see such a move as necessary, not out of spite, but out of duty. If such a clause exists, and if it's ever acted upon, it could alter the face of royal hierarchy, not by displacing someone from the throne, but by redefining their royal identity. This would not be the first time personal decisions disguised as administrative changes rocked the monarchy, but it would be the first time innocent and unknowing children stood at the heart of it. Legally possible, but what about the human impact? Let's profile Meghan's children and their status. For Archie and Lilibet, This story isn't hypothetical. It's their birthright at stake. They were born into royalty but raised far from it. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, born in 2019, and his sister Lilibet Diana, born in 2021, hold places in history that no other royal children have ever held. Archie is sixth in line to the British throne. Lilibet is seventh. Their bloodline is undeniable. Descendants of King Charles III and great-grandchildren of Queen Elizabeth II. But unlike their cousins, they've never known palace walls, royal protocol, or the familiar weight of a title. And perhaps that was the point all along. From the moment Meghan Markle and Prince Harry announced their decision to step back as senior royals, everything changed. The firm was rattled, headlines exploded, and in the silence that followed, two children were born into a fractured legacy. Lilibet entered the world on American soil, a citizen of the United States, and a descendant of the British crown, making her the first royal child in modern history to be born outside the UK. Not alone made her position unprecedented, but it wasn't just geography that complicated things. It was perception, status, and the invisible war over identity. Despite the couple's physical distance from the monarchy, Meghan and Harry made it clear they wanted recognition. They wanted their children to have the titles they believed were owed to them. Not for show, not for privilege, but for protection, for symbolism, for the acknowledgement that their lineage mattered just as much as anyone else's. And yet, the palace remained silent. Then came the delays. Allegedly, there was hesitation in updating the official royal website, confusion over HRH styling, tensions over whether the Queen had approved Lilibet's name, and worst of all, rumors that the Queen's private will may have deliberately excluded their children from succession or status. It's not hard to understand why Harry and Meghan would be alarmed. If their children were stripped of royal dignity through a hidden clause, it would be a message louder than any public statement. You are family by blood, but not by crown. And for a couple who felt exiled, ignored, and even targeted within the institution, such a final blow would cut deeper than anything they had endured before. It would be the ultimate rejection, not of their choices, but of their children's place in the future of the monarchy. Emotionally, it's a storm few can imagine. For Meghan, an American biracial woman who married into a 1,000-year-old institution, her children's place in royal history was always fragile. For Harry, a prince raised in tradition, who watched his mother be destroyed by the palace machine, this would be a painful echo of the past. And for Archie and Lilibet, their identities would forever be shaped by decisions made long before they could understand them. Beyond emotion lies a broader question. Can royalty exist outside the palace? Can children be royal in blood but not in upbringing? Will they ever fully belong to the monarchy if they're being raised in a world that challenges it at every turn? Or is this exactly what the crown feared? Two future royals growing up free from its influence, with the power to choose how their story unfolds. With the children at the heart of this, the monarchy itself is being tested. What's the palace's playbook? If the Queen's will signal exclusion, how will the monarchy enforce it silently or with strategy? Between the grandeur of royal ceremonies lies a machine precise, deliberate, and deeply calculated. The monarchy has survived not by chance, but by mastering the art of transition. So if the whispers are true, if the Queen's private will subtly instructs that Meghan's children be excluded from succession, then it would never be announced. It would be implemented, not with fanfare or press releases, but with soft maneuvering, sealed documents, and legal echoes that feel coincidental. As the monarchy doesn't declare it, adjusts, shifts, adapts, and right now, all signs point to a coming shift. Prince William, now the central figure of the monarchy's future, is reportedly spearheading a bold initiative. A streamlined royal family, built around working royals only. That means fewer HRHs, fewer titles, fewer distractions. In that future, the children of Harry and Meghan living thousands of miles away, raised without royal protocol, and speaking more American than aristocrat, may not fit the narrative. The question isn't whether they're royal by blood, it's whether the institution wants to recognize that blood. And there's precedent for it. Letters patent, the legal tools used by monarchs to assign or remove royal titles, are flexible. They've been amended before, most recently in 2012, when the Queen ensured that all of William's children, not just George, would be princes and princesses. That amendment was about equality. The next one could be about exclusivity. A quiet trimming of the royal tree, enforced not out of malice, but out of duty to modern relevance. Here, Charles and William begin to diverge. King Charles has long favored unity over division. His vision of a slimmer monarchy came with caution and compromise. He allowed Harry and Meghan to keep their Duke and Duchess titles even as they stepped away. But William is different. He has grown up watching tradition come under fire and is known to be more resolute, more decisive. For him, reducing the number of HRHs isn't personal. It's survival. It's the crown above all else. Within the palace, the courtiers know what's coming. Advisors have spoken of the need for clarity, especially with the next generation. Titles shouldn't be used as bargaining chips or social leverage. If Archie and Lilibet are never going to perform royal duties, why keep the titles lingering like ghosts in the corridors? A clean cut, many believe, is better than a confusing compromise. And so, the stage is being set. If the Queen's sealed will truly contains that instruction, it may not even need to be opened. It would simply be respected. It's possible that new letters patent are already drafted, waiting for the right moment. A moment when the monarchy is calm, public opinion is on their side, and the children are still too young to understand what was taken from them. From palace corridors, the rumor moves into public discourse now. Let's look at media and public fire. When secrets spill, the tabloids erupt, and this story has exploded. In a world saturated with royal drama, few headlines hit as hard or spread as fast as the rumor that Queen Elizabeth's private will may have rejected Meghan's children from royal succession. It wasn't just a story, it was a lightning strike across the British Empire and beyond. Within hours, digital platforms flooded with provocative thumbnails and blood-red banners. Queen's will rejects, Meghan's children's shocking betrayal, and the storm only grew louder. On YouTube, the frenzy was immediate. Creators jumped on the fire with dramatized reenactments, speculative timelines, and sensational titles like "Meghan Panics" as royal titles are stripped. Videos gained millions of views in days, feeding off a mix of outrage, disbelief, and morbid curiosity. In the algorithm's grip, even the smallest rumor was amplified into global drama. Reels, shorts, and TikToks stitched together fragments of interviews, blurry photos, and archived news footage, turning internet users into amateur investigators and judges of royal destiny. Meanwhile, the British tabloids, always quick to exploit royal vulnerability, went into overdrive. Papers like the Daily Mail, The Sun, and Mirror printed fiery covers, speculating on the Queen's last wishes. Articles picked apart past photos of the Queen with Archie, questioned the delay in Lilibet's christening, and even scrutinized the royal family's official website for subtle omissions. When the passport issue resurfaced, where Meghan and Harry allegedly struggled to secure formal recognition for their children, the tabloids didn't hesitate to connect the dots. They asked the question directly. Was the palace stalling because of a secret decision that had already been made? And then came the social media split. X, TikTok, Reddit, and Instagram were flooded with commentary, some furious, some tearful, all impassioned. One side, the royalists, clung to the notion that titles and succession should be earned, not expected. They argued the Sussexes had turned their backs on duty, and that consequences were inevitable. The other side, fiercely protective of Meghan and her children, cried injustice, racism, and legacy erasure. They saw the potential exclusion of Archie and Lilibet as a deliberate act to cleanse the bloodline of difference. And in that clash, the conversation moved far beyond royalty. It became a cultural battle over identity, power, and who gets to belong. Analysts weighed in, adding fuel to the fire. Some saw this as the monarchy tightening its grip after years of internal chaos. Others believed it was a desperate attempt to rebrand, using exclusion as a tool of control. A few suggested it was neither revenge nor prejudice, but an institutional move to preserve a fading system. Regardless, one theme remained constant. This was about more than titles. It was about legacy, about whose stories are allowed to survive, and whose are quietly erased. And the audience, they watched, clicked, and reacted in staggering numbers. Viewer metrics soared. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Polls ran on mainstream media, asking the public if they believed the children should be included in the royal fold. The results were split, just like the world watching. Every click made the narrative louder. Every share made it stickier. The monarchy, once protected by silence and tradition, was now at the mercy of global public opinion. With all eyes on Palace versus Sussex, the monarchy's image hangs in balance. Let's examine that fallout. A royal family in flux. This clause could reshape their future from public trust to generational renewal. The monarchy has always relied on one unspoken pact: continuity. No matter the scandal, no matter the era, the crown survives because the public believes in its stability. But now, that illusion has cracked. The rumored clause in the Queen's private will, allegedly rejecting Meghan's children from royal succession, has done more than spark outrage. It's challenged the very soul of the institution, because if even the future monarch's own bloodline can be quietly erased behind sealed documents, then what does legitimacy really mean? And who decides who belongs? For many, the monarchy is already navigating treacherous waters. With the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, an irreplaceable figurehead is gone. In her place stands King Charles, respected but not revered, and beside him, a new generation of royals quietly rising. William and Kate, Edward and Sophie have stepped forward as the faces of the future, reliable, dutiful, apolitical. They are the monarchy's safe bet. And yet, it's not their presence that's controversial. It's the absence of others. The complete erasure of Meghan, Harry, and their children from public events, royal portraits, and perhaps now, even from succession itself, signals a deliberate redirection, a narrowing of the royal road, and caught in the middle of it all are Archie and Lilibet, two children who never asked for crowns, but were born beneath them. They are the ones paying the price for a war they never chose. Raised in a world where their titles are debated, their legitimacy is speculated, and their future is uncertain. They exist in a strange limbo part of the royal narrative, yet omitted from the royal structure. Tradition says they belong, but strategy says otherwise. The monarchy's use of secrecy, sealed wills, unpublished clauses, and selective transparency has always been part of its mystique. It shields the institution from chaos, but in today's world of instant information and public accountability, that mystique can easily become mistrust. The more the palace hides, the more people assume there's something worth hiding, and in the case of Archie and Lilibet, silence speaks volumes. There's a growing recognition that the monarchy must evolve, or risk irrelevance. Some insiders suggest a long-term rebranding is already underway, one that includes digitizing access, reducing the number of HRHs, and transforming the monarchy into something more modern, more efficient, but progress has a cost. And that cost may be the complete sidelining of those who don't fit the new blueprint. The Queen's alleged clause, whether enforceable or not, could become a symbolic marker of that change. The question now is whether the public will accept this. On one side are those who applaud a stripped-down monarchy, free from drama, focused on duty. On the other, voices rise in protest, crying hypocrisy, exclusion, and elitism, masked as tradition, because to exclude two children not for what they've done, but for where and how they were born, feels less like reform and more like rejection. Before we wrap this dramatic saga, let's consider what it signals for the crown and the children at its heart. In the end, the Queen's private will may be sealed, but its ripple is uncontainable. It began as whispers has become a roaring question, echoing from palace corridors to the farthest corners of the internet. Could Queen Elizabeth II, in her final private act, have ordered the quiet removal of Meghan's children from the royal succession? It sounds like fiction, too bold, too personal, too dramatic, but that's exactly why it resonates. Because the monarchy has always walked a line between myth and monarchy, ritual and reality. And in this story, the most powerful truths are the ones never spoken aloud. If such a clause does exist, its enforcement would not come with a proclamation. It would come through precedent, through the centuries-old framework of letters patent, and the sovereign's ability to shape the royal family's face through decree. The infrastructure exists, the mechanics are in place, and the players, King Charles, Prince William, the palace legal teams, have both the authority and the incentive to follow the Queen's wishes, even if never officially revealed. Titles could be trimmed, status could be frozen, and the change would appear as evolution, not exile. But beneath the legal surface lies a deeper rupture, one no title can cover. The family divide is now etched in history. Harry and Meghan, once celebrated as the future's face of the monarchy, now stand estranged from its heartbeat, and their children Archie and Lilibet stand as symbols of that fracture. Not just in bloodline, but in legacy. If the Queen's private will truly carve them out of succession, it didn't just alter a list. It sent a message, one that reverberates through generations. You are loved as family, but not accepted as royalty. And still, the fiercest battlefield remains public perception. The media storm hasn't calmed. It is morphed into a global reckoning. Supporters and critics alike dissect every royal decision, analyzing what it means for fairness, representation, and identity. What once would have passed quietly through tradition is now judged by millions in real time. In this digital monarchy, the crown no longer dictates the narrative it survives. What becomes clear is that this isn't merely about Archie and Lilibet, it's about where the monarchy is going. A calculated pivot is underway. The institution is shrinking, evolving, protecting itself from future scandals by reducing the number of royals who can cause them. In that strategy, cutting ties isn't cruelty, it's consolidation. It's about control. It's about legacy management in a world where every headline chips away at mystique. But in doing so, the monarchy risks becoming something smaller than it ever intended, less accessible, less diverse, less human, and perhaps less beloved. Because if even the Queen's final wishes can quietly erase two royal children from the future, then the public must ask, what else can be hidden? Now it's your verdict. Do royal wills belong behind palace walls, or should public lineage be absolute? Comment below, subscribe, and stay tuned. This secret saga is far from over.